What makes your heart hard? What makes you get callous for the things of the Lord? And we're going to look at that today in detail in the Word of God, because everybody that I know is susceptible to a hardened heart, callousness, things like that. So we want to look at that today and give you an opportunity to learn from the Word of God. I'm not going to preach to you about it. That's next hour tonight. But I want us to learn together, because sometimes knowledge is very, very important. You know, what is it that causes a Christian not to have a hardened heart? You have your Bible there. I'd like you to go to Ephesians chapter 4, if you would, please. Ephesians chapter 4. I'd like to thank you for such a nice time since I've been here. Good food, good fellowship, comfortable bed to sleep in at night, good breakfast in the morning here at the motel, good coffee. It's been fun for me. And so I thank all of you for being so kind to me as you are year after year. And I'm blessed by that. I don't always know if I can come. And so it's a blessing to be able to come. And Brother Cam always asks me, he says, "Well, do you think you'll be able to come next year?" I don't know. I just have no idea. And too many things happen throughout a year that can cause a delay in schedule, or things to change and all that. So I'm just glad that I get to be here. Ephesians chapter 4, beginning in verse 14. Let me read to you. And I want you to listen very carefully as I read through this, because there's a couple of key things here. And we are going to learn together. Learn together this morning. Ephesians 4, beginning in verse 14. He says, "That we henceforth be no more children." Isn't that a good admonition? Grow up. That's great. I think it's wonderful to grow up. Be henceforth no more children, tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine by the sleight of man, and cunning craftiness whereby they lie in wait to deceive. Without going into any detail, he says children do that. Children do that. I don't know if you caught that or not as we were reading. He says, let's not be children. And then he describes what children do. He says what children do is they are tossed to and fro, carried about with every wind of doctrine. Something new comes up, gotta try it, gotta do it, because they just believe everything. And children are that way. And they're supposed to believe their parents, but they believe everything else too. And so that's why they need training. And he says here to the adults, he says, let's not be children anymore. He says, speaking the truth in love, may grow up into him in all things, which is the head, even Christ. From whom the whole body fitly joined together and compacted by that which every joint supplieth, according to the effectual working in the measure of every part, maketh increase of the body unto the edifying of itself in love. So he's talking here about maturing, growing up. When you grow up, when you mature, there are changes that come about in your life. Physically, mentally, emotionally, all of those things are part of a growing process. And he mentions that here. He's talking about how growing up is very important to do. Verse 17. This I say therefore. When you find a therefore in the Bible, you find out what it's there for. He said, this I say therefore, and testify in the Lord, that ye henceforth walk not as other Gentiles walk, in the vanity of their mind, having the understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of God through the ignorance that is in them because of the blindness of their heart, who being past feeling have given themselves over unto lasciviousness, to work all uncleanness with greediness, but ye have not so learned Christ. So he's calling here the difference between heathen people and saved people. He says, you didn't learn this in Jesus, okay? And it says, if so be that ye have heard him and have been taught by him, as the truth is in Jesus, that you put off concerning the former conversation of the old man, which is corrupt according to the deceitful lust, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and that you put on the new man, which after God is created in righteousness and true holiness. I want to take you, if I can, please, to Ephesians 4 and verse 17. And I want you to notice a little phrase here, if you would. It says, this I say therefore and testify, that ye henceforth walk not as the Gentiles walk, in the vanity of their mind. And so we don't want to do that. And then it goes on down here to say this, verse 19, who being past feeling have given themselves over unto lasciviousness, to work all uncleanness with greediness. The admonition here is that God's people ought not become calloused to the things of God. They ought not become hardened in their hearts toward those things. We hear preaching and teaching all the time, and sometimes our hearts just get hardened. I know as a young person and even as an adult, it's not really restricted to any particular individual. It's everybody. And the little word that's used here in verse 19 says, who being past feeling. You may want to remember this. To be past feeling means to cease to feel pain, to cease to feel grief, to cease to feel pain at or to become cold-hearted, insensible to pain, and apathetic. And it's easy for us to become apathetic, meaning that we have no feelings. Things don't move us. They don't bother us anymore. Things that used to bother us don't bother us. Sins that used to concern us about ourselves no longer concern us. Probably I say that everybody here has a callus somewhere on your body, either an elbow or a fingertip or maybe a knuckle, perhaps on the bottom of your feet or maybe even your knees. It's called a callus. And I know that when I first started knocking on doors, my knuckles hurt when I would knock on doors. It was very difficult to knock on doors because you knock on so many and your knuckles hurt. And in the wintertime, they can crack open and they can bleed and they hurt and all kinds of things. Now, no big deal. Because you knock a lot of doors, you get calluses on your knuckles. I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Okay? I have some calluses on my feet. There are some people who can run on rocks. I can't do that. I can't walk on rocks. There are times I will walk out of my house at night to go out into the van and get something and I don't have any shoes on. And I'll step onto the sidewalk that's in front of my house, the front walk, and then I'll get onto the driveway and there's always a little tiny pebble about that big. And I step on it, I don't know how, girls, I don't know how girls can do this. Guys don't do it as much, but I've seen girls with barefooted run on rocks as hard as they can. Can anybody here do that? Yeah. You can do that? I can't do that. If I did that, I would be in the hospital screaming because it hurt my feet so bad. Now they make these little penny things for girls' feet, and if they want to get rid of the calluses on their heels and under their big toe and around like that, and you turn it on, and it sands. Basically, it's a sanding pointer. It goes over your foot and it takes care of all that. You know what I'm talking about? You see those? Okay. And because they want their feet to be smooth, and they don't want to snag their socks or their hose or when they put them on, so they smooth out the bottom of their feet. Well, I have calluses on my fingers from playing the guitar. I have calluses on my knuckles from knocking on doors. I don't have calluses on my feet because I just don't care to go barefooted all the time, okay? And, but you know, there's no feeling in that. There really isn't. Many years ago, I was whittling with my Paw Parton's knife, and I had this knife that was similar to this one here, perhaps a little bit smaller. And my Paw sitting there, and he's whittling. He's just like this. And I said, Paw, can I whittle with your knife? He said, yes, but be careful, don't cut yourself. So I held a piece of wood and immediately cut the end of that finger right off. With a knife that was as sharp as a razor blade. Cut it all the way down, you could count the tendons. You could see them, they were the white shining through the blood. That's how much I cut it. And now that's a callus on me there. It's a scar, it doesn't have any feeling in it. My fingers have feeling, my hands have feeling. Your hands very well may be the most sensitive part of your body when it comes to sensitivity. Like, you know, you can put your face when you take a shower in the morning, and you can put your face in the hot water. But if you put your hands in the hot water, it feels differently. Your hands are more sensitive. Well, if you get calluses, you don't have any feeling in those parts. It's not there. And when the Bible talks about past feeling, that's what it's talking about, callousness. A calloused heart, a calloused feeling, a calloused emotion, where nothing moves us anymore. And one of the great dangers, in my own personal opinion, to the Christian life, is that becoming hardened to the things of God. And it can happen. Hardened to reading the Bible. Hardened to listening to the Bible. And I don't mean listening to preaching, though that's another point. I'm talking about when you read it, you don't listen to it, you just sort of read it. It becomes a class textbook, We become calloused to it. Calloused to preaching, where it doesn't move us anymore. It doesn't do anything for us anymore. Our hearts become to where, I already know that. Or I'm not listening, or you're talking about me, and all kinds of stuff. It's just terrible. And so it does happen even to the best of Christians, and that's just it. This doesn't happen to a bunch of ragtag Christians who have never cared about anything. It happens to the best of Christians. And that's why in Hebrews, if you would go there, chapter 3, we have admonitions there about our hardened heart. You see, the book of Hebrews, in my opinion, was not written to the lost, it was written to the saved. And in my opinion, Hebrews is probably the best book on follow-up, on helping people to grow, because his admonitions let us go on to perfection. Let us grow up. Let's leave some things behind. Let's not let the things of childhood stay with us. Let's go on to maturity. And then it tells us how to do so. But look at the admonitions here found in Hebrews 3 and 4. Look at verse 8, Hebrews 3. Harden not your heart, as in the provocation in the day of temptation in the wilderness. So it doesn't say here, don't let things harden your heart. It says here, don't you harden your heart. Notice in chapter 3 and verse 13, but exhort one another daily while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. Then Hebrews chapter 3 and verse 15, while it is said today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts as in the provocation. And then in Hebrews chapter 4 and verse 7. Hebrews chapter 4 and verse 7 says again, he limiteth a certain day, saying to David, today, after so long a time, as it is said, today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts. So we have here an admonition given numerous times that we are not to let our hearts get hardened. And if you want to, this is not doing disservice to your King James Bible, but if you were to just change the word in your mind from hardened to calloused, just change it. To be calloused, to be scarred, to be without feeling, to be, as we read in Ephesians, past feeling. Past feeling. There are things that can cause our hearts to grow callous to the things of the Lord, but what is the main cause? And we're going to look at that today. It happens, by the way, to all of us at one time or another, and I've never known anyone who did not have a callous heart at times. Probably all of us in this room have had a callous heart. Would you all agree with that? You've had a heart that's been, scarred, callous to where we just didn't feel it anymore. You go to church and you walk out unchanged, unmoved, unscathed, everything. You know what I'm talking about. You read your Bible because you have to, it's part of the assignment. We read it and do what I did when I was in high school when I was reading my government book. Oh, I hated government class as a senior. I remember sitting in there trying to study for a test, and I read the same paragraph over and over and over and over again. And I could not understand it, and I did not get it, and I did not pay attention to it. And to this day, I couldn't tell you what was in that paragraph. I was so uninterested in U.S. government in that particular way. Well, isn't that the way it is sometimes with our Bible? Have you ever been sitting at the table, and Dad or Mom will say, so-and-so pray. And then they'll say, dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day, thank you for the food, that bless us today, help us have a good day, thank you for the green beans and mashed potatoes and hamburgers, and amen in Jesus' name. And then, as you're sitting there and you're starting to pass through, somebody says, did we pray? Yeah. Has that ever happened? Yeah, did we pray? Okay, now, that doesn't mean you're bad, that just means somebody wasn't paying attention. And what's really bad is when the person who prayed says, did we pray? Yeah, and we're not paying attention. Okay, now that happens to all of us, doesn't it? Yeah. Doesn't it happen in church? It happens in church. Of course it does. But there are things that cause us to have a calloused heart, you see. And what I want to do is I want to address those things that can cause our hearts to grow spiritually cold and calloused. And it is a frightening thing to wake up some morning and to come to the realization that your heart has grown cold concerning the things of the Lord. It's a good thing that you realize that, but it's also a sad thing that you come to that realization. And so since all of us have times of spiritual callousness, we want to find out what the Bible has to say about it. So if your heart is calloused right now, you really, maybe you've wandered a way out. Well, I'm going to give you that way out. So First of all, if you're taking notes, and it looks like you are, number one, you need to examine the real cause for a calloused heart. It is not by what we think. It is not by what we think. It is not caused by anything we think most of the time. Let me ask you some. Let me just make some statements, okay? It is not caused by rejection. There are some people who all of their life feel as though they're rejected, and therefore they are callous and cold toward any type of emotion. That does not give us a callous heart for the things of the Lord. It is not caused by denial. Children sometimes think that parents don't love them because they tell them no. Mm-hmm. Well, that may be true in some instances, but a lot of times when you've got a wise parent, they know when to say no about the things you should say no to. That's not going to give you a callous heart. It is not caused by disapproval. We kind of all live with disapproval from time to time. And if I were to ask you to raise a hand, and I'm not going to, if I were to ask you if someone has ever showed disapproval towards you for some reason, you'd all raise your hands. Disapproval. It is not caused by dismissal. What do I mean by that? Somebody dismisses your ideas because they feel they are invalid. That hurts us, doesn't it? You know, and your idea may very well be useless, but it doesn't mean that it's useless because you gave it. It may not be usable at that time. But you see, dismissal and refusal does not mean that it's not a cause for a hardened heart. It is not caused by spurning. Someone looks at you and spurns you because you do not meet their approval. You do not meet their standard. They do not. They don't like your Christianity. They don't like your spirituality. They don't like your sinfulness, and they spurn you, and they have a wrong attitude towards you. It's not caused by prohibition. No, you may not do that. No, you may not go there. No, we are not doing that. No, everyone else may, but how come we can't do that? Everybody else is doing it. No, it's not by prohibition, but prohibiting something. It's not because of restriction. Someone says, give him a short leash. That's a restriction. You can't go very far. When my children were little, we would let them hold on to our hands, but we wouldn't let them get too far ahead of us. One time, my daughter, she decided to wander off from us at a mall. And she did. She just wandered off. Now, we knew where she was, but she didn't know what she was doing. At that time, her brain had not developed at all. She just had stand in the back of her head. And no brains. And she was just walking around looking at things in store windows and enjoying. And I said to Robin, let's just hide over here. Wow. And so we walked into a front of a store. You know how they got the glass, and then they have the inset for the door, and then there's the door. We stepped inside the little inset and just kept our eye on little Cindy. And then finally, she came to the realization that Mom and Dad were not there anymore. And she started to cry and looking, and she was absolutely desperate to find us. And so Robin and I just stepped out where she could see us. And then she walked up beside us, put her hand over her. And we never rebuked her. We watched her wipe her tears out of her eyes. We never told her, where did you go? Did you get lost? We just made ourselves available once again. And so we did not restrict her from walking away, but we would have run after her had she gone too far. But sometimes when we get restricted, we feel as though, that's going to harden our hearts, and it just makes us angry and mad. It's not caused by exclusion. When I was growing up, I was always the last one picked for a team, and that was because they had to pick me. They didn't want me on their basketball team, they didn't want me on the baseball team, they didn't want me on their football team, they didn't want me on their soccer team. I was never picked. And I was, Barton's left, pick him, So I was excluded. There's a number of reasons for that, and we won't go into my lack of ability. But I was always excluded. And by the way, personal hurt is not a cause for a hardened heart. Personal hurt. Don't raise your hand. Anybody here ever not been hurt by someone? We've all been hurt, haven't we? Listen, if people call you names, they make fun of you, how you look. They make fun. Listen, when I was in school, there was a guy that was there named Christy Beach. Christie Beach had acne. He didn't have pimples, he had acne. People made fun of how he looked. There was a girl by the name of Ruth Helfrich. I think she was a pretty girl underneath all the acne. I think she was. She was tall, but she became very bitter and angry. She had the worst, filthy mouth. But that's because people looked at her and called her names. And they made fun of her because of how she looked, you see. And I remember there was a girl named Cheryl Seacrest who liked Christie Beach at one time. Cheryl came to my church. She ended up going to Bob Jones University at one time. She didn't brush her teeth real often, so they turned kind of a yellowish green. And they called her Cheryl Green Teeth. Can you imagine how that would make you feel, just making fun of you? And but to be personally hurt by someone, that is not something that calluses our hearts. We blame them on that. Well, you don't understand how I was treated when I was growing up. I was called this name, I was called that name, I was called stupid, I was called dumb, I was called ugly, I was called this, I was called that. And so it's not by personal hurt. By the way, it's not by spiritual injury. Spiritual injury. I remember my pastor in Minnesota stood up one day and said, I need a volunteer to take so-and-so to the airport. And a man raised his hand and said, I volunteer. And the pastor said, from the pulpit in front of about 500 people in church that night, he says, no, I want someone who knows what they're doing. Ooh. See what happened? He, his wife, and his children stood up, walked out of the church, and never came back. But that doesn't harden your heart. That hurts. That hurts. That really does. My pastor in Michigan put me in charge of Vacation Bible School. And I said, it's going to be radical. We're going to make a humongous change. And people were kind of skeptical of it, but it did work out. I'm going to give you the good news first. The good news is it worked out. We had the record-setting Vacation Bible School, people saved, people in attendance, workers that worked. I mean, everything was a record that was broken that year because the pastor asked me to do that. But I remember sitting in the staff meeting where we were discussing that. And I remember the youth director of the church, he looked at me and he said, that's stupid. I'm not doing it. I thought that was interesting. And he didn't do it, you see. And so that was kind of hurtful to me because I was the guy that was put in charge, you see. And so but it didn't cause my heart to get harder. Something caused his to get that way. Spiritual injury, disillusionment, where you thought, what is disillusionment? It's where you think something is going to be a particular way and it doesn't end up being that way. You thought somebody was going to be more spiritual than you thought they were. You thought someone was going to be a bigger success than what they were. You thought someone had more character than what they ended up having. You thought someone would have something better to say. You thought they were above that kind of sin. You didn't know they were going to use that kind of language. Remember Dr. House told a story one time about a man. He was having lunch with him, big name preacher. I named him off. You probably would not know who he is because he's from the U.S., but he was an older man at that time, and Dr. House was sitting at the table eating with him, and they started talking, and this man said something about a woman in his church and called her a name that I cannot repeat in this crowd. Dr. House said, I choked on my lettuce. And he said, you said what? He said, yeah, she's a Yeah, well, that kind of ruined his opinion of this fellow's language because of what he said about this woman in the church. And it's very amazing. Disillusionment. There's a pastor friend of mine in Minnesota. He's still there. He married one of my girls that was in my youth group. I like him. He's a good guy. But he told me one day, as he was in my office, he said something about lying. He lied to his deacons on purpose about certain things. He would tell them a lie. I said, man, that's lying. He said, it's all right. That's what I do with my men. I thought, man, I wouldn't want you as my pastor. That's disillusionment when you think a man is something that he's really not. Okay? So, there's something else. I got a few on this list, and I need to do this. It's not caused by having too much church. Doing church all the time, heart goes hard. Get used to it. Well, you might get used to it, and your heart might get hard, but it's not because you have too much church. Something else, too much fellowship. It's caused by the Lord. It's not caused by having too much of a good thing. You see. For example, we hear that a person has become gospel hardened. I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase or not, but they'll say an area in a city has become gospel hardened because of all the people that go soul winning there and knock on doors and all the rest of that. But the truth of the matter is, it's simply not true. Nobody is gospel hardened. The preaching of the Word of God does not harden a person's heart. It's hardened by something else. You know, for example, we hear about Christian young people become hardened to the things of the Lord because they hear too much preaching. I had a guy say that to me one time. Yeah, he says, kids today, their hearts get real hard because, man, they have church on Sunday morning, Sunday school on Sunday morning, youth chapel on Sunday night preaching, and then if they go to the Christian school, they have their Bible time every day, and then they have chapel time every week, and then they have a youth activity and a Bible study on a youth activity. They have too much Bible. Their hearts are getting hardened to the things of the Lord because of that. And when he said that to me, I thought to myself, not only is that not true, but you're foolish to even believe that.
Yeah.
Because there's another reason. The preaching of the Word of God does not harden a person's heart. By the way, there are illustrations about that. They'll say, the same sun that melts melts wax is the same sun that hardens dirt. They give these illustrations that kind of, like if you boil an egg in water, it gets hard. If you boil a noodle in water, it gets soft. And so they talk about how the same boiling will harden one thing and soften something else. Well, those illustrations, they make a point, I think, but it's not true about what hardens our hearts. So, number two, some people refuse to hear what God's Word says. I said, first of all, we need to examine the real cause for a calloused heart. Number two, some refuse to hear what the Word of God says. Matthew 13 and verse 15 says, "For this people's heart is waxed gross." That means that it's turned hard. "And their ears are dull of hearing," which means their ear drums have become scarred and they can't hear. "And their eyes have become closed, lest at any time they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears, and should understand with their heart, and should be converted, and I should heal them." And then there's Acts chapter 28 and verse 27. It says, "For the heart of this people is waxed gross." It's talking about it getting hard. "And their ears are dull of hearing." It says basically the same thing. And then there's Hebrews chapter 5 and verse 11, where the Bible says, "Of whom we have many things to say, and hard to be uttered, seeing ye are dull of hearing." My children all grew up with ear infections. They have their eardrums burst. We have to take them to the doctor and get tubes put in their ears. But my wife, I remember one time, right after we got married, she ended up with an ear infection, and she went to the emergency room and sat there for hours, and they never saw her because the line is so huge in the emergency room. Took her home, and her eardrum burst. Just burst open. It drained it all out, and she felt better. But when her ear healed, it healed together like, what they sometimes do is they will take your eardrum and they will slice it, and it will come open, and all the infection will run out, and then it will heal back like this. My wife, however, hers exploded, so it grew back like this. You see? And so that was a wide scar. So her hearing is impaired now because of that. That's happened to a lot of people. Why? Because there's something there that doesn't respond to sound. It doesn't respond. Dull of hearing. You have something in your life that has caused you not to hear the spiritual things. Being dull of hearing. And that's what Paul wrote in Hebrews. He said you become dull of hearing. I'd like to be able to teach you this, but you're dull of hearing. Your eardrums have become scarred. You don't hear me anymore. The older I get, the worse my hearing is. I brought my hearing aids with me, but I have one this week. And some of you have already noticed that I will look at you and say that again. Have any of you noticed that about me this week? Yeah, say it again. Or I'll look at you and say, And the reason I do that is because I don't have my hearing aids in. And sometimes I will talk louder because I can't hear myself as well. And so my hearing has gone down. My audiologist told me that my hearing in this ear is especially bad. So I will lean this one towards you when you're talking, because this one's not quite as bad. So we find out that people become dull of hearing because something has caused their hearing to go bad. So a calloused heart is caused by one thing. Hebrews chapter 3 and verse 13. And I'd like you, if you have your Bible and after you write this down, I would like you to look in your Bible at Hebrews 3 and verse 13. Hebrews 3 and verse 13. It says, but exhort one another daily, while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened. And what does that word hardened mean? Calloused. Calloused. Hardened through what? The deceitfulness of sin. The heart becomes hardened to spiritual things because sin is deceitful. The word deceitful means deceptiveness, misleading, the misleading of sin. And how foolish to think that preaching and the preaching of the Word of God, and reading and the reading of the Word of God, and hearing and the hearing of the Word of God can harden a person's heart. Preaching does not harden hearts. Sin does. Teaching does not harden hearts. Too much exposure to the Word of God does not harden hearts. But what hardens heart is the deceitfulness of sin. You see, how is sin deceitful? The longer you're exposed to it, the less wrong it seems to you. Now, you've heard me give this illustration before, I believe years ago. But you walk into a room and turn off all the lights and you can't see anything, right? Mm-hmm. Until 15 minutes pass. And then you can see everything. And nobody turned the lights up. Nobody turned them down. The only thing that changed was you because of constant exposure to darkness. Mm-hmm. The longer you're exposed to darkness, the more like light it appears to you. Mm-hmm. That's what the deceitfulness of sin is. The old story is this: an old man and his son went into a restaurant to eat, and the old man sitting there, he says to the waiter when he comes over, could you do me a favor and turn the lights up just a little bit? I can't see I can't see the menu. I can't, and his eyes are kind of dimming because he was getting a little older. And the waiter walked away from the table and came back later, and the man looked at him and said, thank you so much for turning the lights up a little bit. He says, but it's still a little dark in here, and could you just turn the lights up a little bit more for my sake so that I can see? And the waiter walked away from the table, came back to the table to fill water, and the old man looked up and says, can I just bother you one more time? He said, I still really just can't even read what's on the menu. Could you just turn the lights up a little bit more? And he says, and that'll be fine. And so the waiter walked away, and he came back with part of the order, and the old man looked up and said, thank you so much for turning the lights up. He said, I'm able to see and I'm able to read just fine. And the waiter looked at him and said, sir, I've not touched the lights. The lights have not changed at all, but you've adjusted to the darkness. And that's what the deceitfulness of sin is. The longer you're exposed to wrong, the more like right it's going to seem to you. Mm-hmm. The more you're exposed to darkness, the more like light it will appear to you. That's why the things that used to bother us on television don't bother us anymore. It's because of constant exposure. I remember a young man, I don't like to hear cursing on TV. I just think it's a terrible thing to listen to. But I remember years ago, it was 1980, and there was a movie that was out about orca whales, and it was a real suspenseful thing. I think it was called Orca. I don't know. I think that's what it was called. And an orca, you know what that is, don't you? It's killer whale, black and white with a big fin on that. And this kid comes into school and he says, Pastor Dan, I saw this great movie last night on TV. It was called Orca. He says, and there wasn't any language in it at all. Well, I had just seen part of that movie and had to turn it off because of that language. Now, why didn't he hear it? He didn't hear it because of constant exposure to that kind of language, you see. And so, that's what happens. That's what hardens our hearts. Now, let me give you a verse. Isaiah 5 and verse 20. You don't have to turn there, but you do want to write it down. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. That's what we're talking about when we talk about the deceitfulness of sin. And the Bible tells us plainly, it's not too much preaching that hardens our hearts. It's not too much church that hardens our hearts. It's not too many rules in our home that harden our hearts. It's none of those things. The Bible says our hearts become calloused and past feeling and non-feeling to the things of the Lord for one reason. Because sin is deceitful. And after a while, we can't feel it. You sin. That's why sometimes we go to church and we sit and we listen and we sort of go into a daydream and a daze of some kind. And oh, that's just his opinion. And we get our hearts hardened toward the things of the Lord. It's not because of necessarily what the man of God or the woman of God is saying from that podium or from that pulpit. It's because within our hearts there is sin that has deceived us into thinking that good is bad. That's why young people, I was a young people a long time ago, a very long time ago, but I can still remember. I may be 60 now, but there was a time I was a teenager. And I remember what my generation always asked their parents about things when parents would say, you know, you shouldn't be involved in that. You probably should not do that. That friend will hurt you. You run with that crowd. And then they say things like, you know, you run with a skunk, you're going to smell like one. And they give you all these things that they say to you when you're growing up. I mean, what I'm talking about? Yeah, well, my parents have become very wise now that I'm older. But you know, here's the thing. What do young people look at their parents and say about their friends and about their activities? Well, what's wrong with it? I don't see anything wrong with it. I learned here recently when I went in for my last eye exam, I now have cataracts on my eyes. I've got one here and one here, and they're both different. I have two different kinds of cataracts in my eyes. I said, well, Doc, what's going to happen to my eyes? He said, in about 5 years, you're going to have to peel your eyes open and fix that for you because it's going to impair your vision. So just because we have something on our glasses and can't see it doesn't mean that it's not there. And a young person says, I don't see it that way. Or they might say, well, that's your opinion. Well, here's the bottom line. We adults are just as excuse-filled as we were when we were younger. We do exactly the same thing. We say, I don't see anything wrong with it. Or, that doesn't bother me. Or, whatever. Well, just like my knuckles. If you were to take your knuckles and do that, it might hurt yours. Mine are covered with calluses. So it doesn't hurt me. You might pick up a guitar like I do and play and try to do a chord with your left hand and strum with your right. And then you might put it down after 3 chords and say, ow, my fingers, they hurt. Oh, they're so sensitive. I can play all day because I have calluses on the end of my fingers. And just because I don't feel it doesn't mean that it can't hurt. It just means that I have calluses. And sometimes in our lives we allow sin to permeate our lives to the point where things just don't bother us anymore. That don't bother me any. I'm not convicted about that. That's no big deal. We say all these different things. But sometimes it's not because there's nothing wrong with it. Sometimes it's because we don't see it. We got cataracts. We have calluses. We have something that is hardened. And the Bible says what hardens our hearts is nothing less. The Bible says the deceitfulness of sin hardens our hearts. And when you have a Christian who continually involves himself or herself in a particular thing that is not good, after a while, to them it seems like it's okay. Just no big deal. And you know, I think it's great that God covers that in the Bible because we human beings are so human in the way that we think and the way that we feel. And we don't understand, here's what happens, and then our life gets ruined by the things that we choose and we never saw anything wrong with it. We get older and all of a sudden, how did I get here? How did I become an alcoholic? How did I become a drug addict? How did I get this disease? How did I become this? How did I do that? We don't understand how we got there until we got there. And we realized that while we were getting there, we just never saw anything wrong with it. We never saw the hurt. And so that's the Bible study this morning for Sunday school. What is it that hardens our hearts? Is it too much church? Too much preaching? Too much attitude? Too much rejection? Too much hurt? Too many rules? Too many nasty things that are said? No, it's none of those things. All those things hurt. And some of those things are helpful. And sometimes we guys in the pulpit are, we're not what we ought to be. But none of those things harden our hearts. The only thing that hardens our heart is when we allow sin to deceive us into thinking that it's okay. And after a while, we just start doing it. It's no big deal. then catches up with us. Boy, do we